So let's talk about who are the children of now. Who are these sensitive, intuitive, connected, in tune children that we are raising today? So, my belief is that we all come in waves of awakening. And you may have heard of the labels that have been put out there of the indigo children, the crystal children, the rainbow children. There's all these labels. Now, I don't really work very well within labels, but the way that I have seen it is in generational flow. So, what we see as generational flow comes in with, say, for my parents, my mother, my mother being open to the spiritual realm was the beginning for our line here. For me, and anyway, in my energy, she was the opener. She started the exploration. Started asking the questions. She had big experiences and wanted to find out more. It was the beginning of not repressing. Now, when I say the beginning of the lineage, I don't mean that, none of my lineage before that had spiritual inclinations or experiences, because I highly feel that they did too. But this was the beginning of not repressing it. This was the beginning of actually opening to it and asking some questions around what is this and what does it mean and how can I support this to open, to support me and to help me grow. That was the big question. It stopped being so scary. Now, when I was a child, I mentioned in my intro podcast beforehand that I was really sensitive as a child. It showed up in me being really clingy, me not wanting to leave my mom's side. I have images of myself holding onto skirts and looking up at her and just feeling that fear in new surroundings and other people's energy. Really, really using her personal space as my own safety net, my own bubble. And I know having children that are sensitive now, that my daughter is using that as well. And so I can relate to that energy, and that relation, that relating to that helps me to understand that and really helps me to navigate when it can be really frustrating. So that's important. But the other way that it represented was really anxious and afraid to do things on my own, feeling very much that I had to question a lot because was it my energy? Was it not my energy? I'm feeling so much, so deeply. And it could come out as well when you might ask somebody if, oh, are you okay? Because you feel this energy is off, this energy is deeper and heavy. And so you might ask your mom, are you okay? You might ask a friend or somebody at the shops, are you okay? And you're seeking that information of what's this big, deep feeling that I'm moving through right now. Doesn't really make sense to me because it's not mine. And then for the other person to not be ready to share that deep feeling and to perhaps say, no, no, I'm fine, everything's great. That is so confusing to the intuitive, sensitive child that's picking up on this thing, but it's not being communicated or validated as that external feeling. So, when you're really internalizing all of these big feelings, these big external problems, it can be really confusing for that mind body connection. Now, as a child growing up, I really struggled to connect in with reality, labeled that daydreamer, the one that would sit in classes and watch out the window. And what was going through my mind at that time was I was watching fairy lights dancing through the trees. My most favorite thing to do is to lay under the trees and watch the sunlight glitter through them because it reminds me of the fairy lights that I would see as a child dancing through the bush. We lived right on the edge of the state forest, and my school was, I was lucky enough to have a school that backed onto it as well. And I would go to the edge of of the playground fence line and just stand and watch into the forest. And I remember just looking up into the distance of the mountains and watching all the trees and feeling that I could definitely feel and sense the movement of mythical creatures like unicorns. I had a unicorn guide as a young child who used to run, pound, galloping alongside the car, would come with me everywhere I go. And that is my guide to assure me that I'm on the right path. I'll talk more about that in another session. But this made me feel like such an outsider as a child because, I was always the weirdo. I was always the daydreamer who was making up these big stories. I had imaginary friends that I used to bring with me to play dates and things like that. I had um, what I now recognize as encounters with people who had passed over. So, seeing dead people, that's something that I never really claimed awareness of until I look back on it and think I would have these conversations with people in my backyard that were dressed in clothing from another time. And she would share, I remember this lady, she was a young woman sharing me this story of a shipwreck, and it was so real for me. And for me to go and tell people about that, and for them to say, "Oh, you've got such an imagination," and that to be, it wasn't embraced as real. And so that, yeah, once again, seeded so much self doubt. So, how do we grow in this world when we've got people around us who are close with us questioning and doubting what you perceive as real, and you feeling what you feel to be real, and you're told that no, 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 it's not, that's not right, you're fine, everything's okay. We evolve into different states of being, and it's really individual to everybody's individual story. But for me, I can share it was very much the people pleaser of wanting to make sure that everybody was okay. That nurture in me comes out, and here I am, a healer. And that good girl, the good girl energy of I must be good, I have to get good grades. If I get good grades, then I'm doing well, I'm being good. All of that comes out. And there was a lot of anxiety, once again, around not getting it right, around not performing at a high standard and setting really high standards on myself. Really making sure that I didn't slack off because I don't want to be perceived as lazy or a daydreamer. I'm working really hard, even though I'm really struggling with feeling unfocused and like I want to get lost off in my dream world. It's very much this living in two worlds has been something that I've related to for my whole life. And there was a big section of my life where I tried to repress that. So I really embraced my spiritual self as a teenager and got into all of my witchiness and was able to do a lot of my energy healing work. So that's where I first encountered Reiki healing, and working with the tarot, working with the seasons and goddess energy. Really, really stepped into claiming that as a teenager and being really claiming that weird outsider self that was really like a calling card for me. Um, it didn't really bring me in much friends. Wasn't really that popular person, but the friendships that I did have were really important to me. What happened was in my 20s, I met my Jared, who's my now husband, and I ended up moving on an intuitive nudge across the country from Victoria to Queensland to live with him. And that was a big intuitive following. I'll talk about that in another episode, not more deeply. But um, the big thing that came from that was that I felt like, okay, so I'm in a place where I know absolutely nobody. To be able to make friends and fit in, you've just got to try be normal. Try and, just don't talk about any of that weird stuff that, you were always into before. So, although I would continue my practice and I'd keep a little altar in my room and I would continue with my meditation and my cards, it was really just for me. And although Jared knew that I would still practice, it was really quiet and it was a really small practice. It was just for me in my own space. And it wasn't something that I spoke about very often. But then what happened was I got a job working in corporate, climbing up that ladder, and you get busy with these life things, and that practice starts to get smaller and smaller because it's not an owned aspect of your life and who you are. So it's really important that I had to really unleash a lot of my conditioning that kept me small and really burst out of that broom closet and reclaim who I was again. And that happened when I actually had my first daughter. And she needed me to do that. She needed my gifts again. She needed my hands on energy healing because she was a baby who screamed. She was a baby who did not sleep. So not only was she calling out for me to connect with her, which took me a while to work out how to actually do that, because first I needed to reconnect with myself, with my roots, and really reclaim my inner power again. Because I'd put myself in a box where I didn't talk about anything that really meant to anything to me. All my values were really strangled in this. It feels like this twine's just wrapping them up and pushing them down and out of reach. So there was a lot of reclamation there to do that. And I had to do that to be able to be this mother that she needs today, to be able to guide her when she is moving through her journeys. And when I say that, is she's moving through astral traveling and dreams. And I think, oh, I used to do that. Let me show you how to help you. And, you know, when my other daughter is seeing entities and talking with her grandfather who has passed and having these conversations and seeing them out in the world, they're feeling these energies and they want answers. They want recognition and validation that they're not crazy. They're not alone, and we are here to support them. I can hear them running above me. We're here to support them. We're here to keep them open. We're not going to slam these doors shut or push their energies down, push these gifts down. We are going to embrace them and show them how much they can change this world with their open hearts, with their connected open hearts. That's what I would really love to do. So I'll talk some more about this because this is what we're here for. But that's just a little bit of an intro on who are these intuitive, sensitive children. Do you have one? Do you need support with them? Let me help you. Okay, lots of love.